Hello Internet and welcome to a non-experimental cataclysm video, which is probably confusing since I'm going to use that thumbnail anyway. So if you don't know, because I know a lot of people don't watch the update shows, I'm currently taking a little bit of time off, and I know people were hoping I would be back by now, but alas, I am not. I've been doing extremely poorly. I'm having some interpersonal issues, work issues, and all kinds, just a lot of problems in my life currently, and ultimately what it comes down to is poor mental health. I get very easily overwhelmed. I'm supposed to be starting a new type of therapy. I'm going to start DBT therapy, which is apparently really good for people who have overwhelming emotions that they can't control, like bipolar folks or folks like me with very severe like emotional issues. It doesn't matter anyway. So I'm taking a little time off. However, sitting around all day is really not good for me. So I've turned my attention to trying to add things to Cataclysm. I didn't like sitting around all day, so I started sifting through the old issues and just picking out things that I thought I could fix with the game. And my goal was to make one a day for 7 changes basically over the last week. And I thought in this episode, since I haven't been making content, we could go over some of the very simple changes that I've made that I already know a lot about, so I don't actually have to research them like I would for other content that I make. And yeah, just it's updates to the game. It's not really the video that you want, but at least it's something Cataclysm related, I guess. Also, as always, my drunk hillbilly neighbor is blasting music with his dog yipping, so if you hear any random tunes, it sounds like he's listening to like emo music from the early 2000s, which honestly surprises me given his hillbilly nature, but if you hear any music, that would be why. And this video is probably going to be lower quality than usual, so let's have a look at my PRs here. Yeah, so about a week ago, I was just sifting through the old issues, trying to find like a good starting point. People often ask me like, hey, I want to contribute to the game, where should I start? Now we actually do have a tag for this, so if you go to the Cataclysm GitHub page, which is very easy to find, it might even be linked in this video, and you go over to issues here and you click the labels button and you scroll down, I think it's on page 2. We have a tag here called good first issue, which is just, when they remember to use it, it's basically saying, hey, this is a pretty easy thing to fix. So I went through, I think, every single one of these, and the majority of them actually, well, one, they don't always apply the good first issue tag to things that are actually good first issues, so they miss a lot of things, and that's because this is like a voluntary flag, and I think people just forget sometimes to add it. And so a lot of these are either very old and they're like, just maybe not good for a first issue. So like here we have make several tedious gathering type quests a checklist instead of a quest line. That's not really something that is a good first issue. I don't think someone who just picked up the JSON would understand how to do that. So I sifted through, all of these, and there's only like 80 of them, but I did pick some that I thought were easy and decided, hey, this is a good point for us to start learning again. Because it's been, I think it was October 2019 was the last time that I had contributed prior to last Friday. So with that in mind, I sifted through. In fact, let's have a look here. Yeah, it looks like my last PR was to add disposable batteries so they could be used on MP3 players, which was literally almost 5 years ago. So it's been quite a while. Anyway, I found a few simple issues that asked me to audit the prices for the canning pot and workshop toolbox. Basically, they were giving way more, were way more expensive than they should have been. So for example, a clay canning pot, it was made from just a little bit of clay. You could make one in about an hour and it would earn you $100 worth of materials. And there are a lot of things in this game that are nowhere close to $100, and certainly a clay pot it's just a big clay pot. It's not worth $100. So I thought this would be a good starter issue. It literally changed like 2 files, like 2 little bitty lines here, and it was just to change their prices, but hey, it was a good starting point. So canning pots and workshop toolboxes are no longer worth the money that they once were. Oh, my neighbor switched to really loud country music, so that's more appropriate for his sort of behavior, I think. So next up, I saw there was an issue that basically said, hey, I got a pre-cold or a pre-flu and I took Panacea and it did not cure that disorder. So if you don't know, we actually have 2 separate effects in this game. We actually have, there's cold and flu, which you're probably familiar with, but we actually have a separate version of them called the pre-cold and the pre-flu. And what these do is that they give just a different set of effects, even though they're the same disease or disorder or whatever you want to call it. But for some reason, those early stages of the cold were not curable using Panacea. So again, just like 2 lines changed, I believe, and we just added the pre-common cold and pre-flu to that particular list. And again, these are things that, they exist. If you sift through the old issues, if you want to be a contributor, there are a lot of random stuff like this that's very small, very easy. This took me literally 5 minutes probably just to add essentially 2 words to this line, right? Now, they do require a little research. Obviously, you should test your changes in the game, but I just want, I always try to encourage people to contribute, even though I've pretty much fallen away from doing it myself over the last few years. So there are these very easy fixes that people can do if you're so inclined to contribute. Next up, we fixed a typo and punctuations for techniques. So this was pointed out, I believe, by the Shadow Ferret at some point. Essentially, when you would get a technique that triggered offensively, you would get this little exclamation point at the end of that particular attack. However, the game has changed since then to append both damage and the area that you actually hit. So what you were getting was double punctuation. So it would say, "You quickly strike the zombie!" exclamation point for 14 damage period, which is not a proper sentence. So I went through every single offensive technique, I believe, in the game, and I quickly checked, do they have a duplicate punctuation? I went through, I removed that punctuation. So now we can see it will look like this, reading as one full sentence instead of 2 kind of fragmented sentences here. So you quickly strike the zombie for 13 damage, comma, and hit it in the arm. And again, just this one was a lot more work because I wasn't super familiar with techniques, so I actually tested every single technique that I found in the game just to make sure that it actually printed properly, which was an enormous amount of very tedious work. It was very simple, but it was extremely time consuming. This alone took me like 2 hours just to sift through every single one of these. But again, been having some mental health issues, so like it's super common for me to flip between like so depressed that I actually can't function as a human being at all. And you forget to brush your teeth, you forget to bathe, sometimes you don't eat for 16 hours, and you're like, oh yeah, I didn't eat today. I don't really want to eat today, and then you don't eat, and you just get more sad. But the other side of that is like hyper focused fixation on things. So I actually spent like I said, like 2 hours probably testing all of this, and I was hyper focused. It was all I was doing, no music, no nothing. I just was kind of lost in that, and that's what happened. And then the other thing this addressed is that there was a typo in almost every single disarm message where someone had "ot" instead of. So I just quickly addressed that since I found that while I was testing. So yeah, that's a little bit more complicated, mostly just the tedium of that. But again, it would have been a good first issue for someone. So, I just want to keep encouraging people to just contribute because it's pretty easy to do. I did like 12 of them in the last week. It's surprisingly easy. Next up, we have an oversized reinforced cardboard box. Someone had said basically, hey, we have this, I think it was let me look here, large cardboard box could be reinforced. And reinforcing it basically just smushes 2 boxes together, tapes them together, and makes it so it can hold more weight. That's all that it did. So they said basically, hey, we have a reinforced large box, but we don't have a reinforced oversized box, and we should probably have that. So I quickly banged out a recipe, made sure everything worked properly. Dragon Wizard weighed in and was like, hey, actually, I kind of think we should calculate for the weight of the additional duct tape, which I personally think is a little bit too specific. I don't know that was necessary. I basically added 2 grams to it. But really, regardless, anytime you get feedback on a PR, it's like usually valuable in some capacity, right? So, or you, even if you don't agree with what someone is saying, you will then lay out your argument, which makes you kind of reason it out a little bit more, I think, which is important. But I made the changes that they requested pretty simple, and that was merged, I think, today, actually. Yeah, 19 hours ago. Very simple, very straightforward. Next, we had broken wheels giving rubber. So this was an old issue from, I think, like 2 years ago. People were complaining that when you would break a vehicle part and you would take it off the vehicle, right, it gives you the shattered remnants of that part. So if you take a quarter panel that's been fully destroyed and you remove it from a vehicle, it gives you like sheet metal or broken pieces of metal or something like that. And unfortunately, wheels have never had a rubber component. They've always just given steel. That's been that way basically since deconstructing wheels in that way was possible. And so again, I just audited every wheel. I made a spreadsheet because I'm, just sometimes you want to make a spreadsheet. And my goal was to take the disassembly. So basically I found every single wheel that was made of rubber. Some of them are plastic, some are all metal, like spokes and stuff that they're not actually rubber wheels. But I went through and found all the ones that were rubber. I, kind of figured out what their base item is that is required to install them. I looked at the disassembly recipes for those items and wrote them down. I was going to use this as the metric to determine how much rubber they get afterwards, but it didn't really work out that way because unfortunately a lot of these have ridiculous recipes. So for example, if you take apart a pair of wheelchair wheels, you actually get 2 bicycle wheels and a total, if you took all of that apart, of 6 rubber tire strips. And unfortunately that's 6 times what you would get from a standard 17-inch vehicle wheel, which is obviously nonsense. So I had to get a little creative. Some of these are a little arbitrary, but basically now every wheel, once it's broken and you take it off the vehicle, it will give you steel like it always has, but it will also give you an assortment of rubber pieces. And the only thing I don't like here is that shredded rubber is actually a very, very tiny item in the game. So realistically, if a wheel's been destroyed and it's giving you shredded rubber, it should probably give you several hundred or even over 1,000 shredded rubber per tire. But it really scared me to add like 1,000 of something to a deconstruction like that, because then you're going to end up with thousands and thousands of very tiny rubber pieces that have basically no use in the game. And I just worried that that might lag the game or cause problems. So I really lowered those numbers to it's way lower than it should be, but I don't think anyone really cares about that. Anyway, that's enough about that. That one also took me a long time because I wasn't familiar with the wheels themselves. So I had to kind of read through every single one, do all that spreadsheet stuff and figure out what I was doing there. So took a fair bit of time, but it was something. Next up, make drones drone. Yeah, someone pointed out that the, what are they called? Quadcopters. So like anything, the manhacks are all quadcopters. I think for one of the labs, there's a bunch of security drones that are just quadcopters with weapons on them. And unfortunately, none of those things made noise. And there was an old PR that wanted to use the parroting system. And parroting is basically when a creature uses a snippet to kind of bark at the player. So for example, so the greatest example is Amigo, right? When you get near Amigo, they will say random sentences that make them like sound like they could potentially be an NPC. So if you're in like a building and you hear speech, you might think, oh, it's an NPC, but then you look out the window and it's actually Amigo. And so they wanted to use that system to produce sounds for drones. That's really not a great way to do this. So what I settled on, I think it was recommended actually in this PR from Fairy Armadillo. Shout out to Fairy Armadillo. They commented on a lot of the issues that I was looking at to possibly correct myself. So, but the way we did this is that instead of using the parroting system, we actually gave them footsteps. Now, normally a flying creature cannot have footsteps. They have a specific hard-coded thing that says, hey, you can't produce footsteps if you're a flying creature. There is a flag to get around that. It's not ideal. So unfortunately, this is like the best I could do. It says whir when you hear basically the footsteps of a drone. And it's something, it produces a whirring sound. And yes, I spelled whir incorrectly. That's intentional. It's not meant to be the word whir. It's meant to be an onomatopoeia of whir, but I kind of figure maybe that'll cause issues later. Someone will think that's a typo or whatever, so I thought I would mention it. But yeah, basically just they create footsteps now, which is the whirring sound. So if you're through a wall, you will hear a drone whirring through a wall, and that should alert you that there's a quadcopter in there. And this is noticeably different from other robots. Other robots produce, I believe it's called mechanical whirring from that location as opposed to just whir. So that's some way to quickly identify that this is a drone, because I think insects as well create a like buzz sound, like bzzz sound. So it is noticeably distinct from everything else in the game. So if you hear that, there's a drone, a manhack, whatever through that wall. So that was pretty easy. It was mostly just figuring out how to do it. I had never done this before, and I had to kind of copy some of the stuff from the robot and figure out how to do that. But Yeah, no big deal really there. Pretty easy. Next up, we have you can get drunk from brandied fruit. Yeah, this was pointed out by someone a long time ago, basically saying, hey, brandied fruit is literally just fruit that is existing in very hardcore alcohol. And when you consume that, you don't actually get drunk. And it even had a flag for treating alcohol addiction. So this was from Robot Gamer. It's literally, it's like 40% alcohol with some fruit in it, right? So there's like no reason it shouldn't make you drunk. It's literally, you're drinking like whiskey. You can make it with moonshine. It just unfortunately can't inherit alcohol. So I had to manually assign that this was alcoholic. So now when you eat brandied fruit, it will give you the alcoholic effect, which will get you tipsy, drunk, etc. It'll give you the negative stim effect, which is like the depressants that you would get from drinking alcohol. It reduces quench, which I think previously it was like, maybe it already did, I don't really remember, but not nearly enough. And then finally I left it being not unhealthy. Usually alcohol is tagged as unhealthy with a -1 to health, and I decided to not do that because there's like fruit. I don't know, maybe that cancels out somehow. I have no idea. I don't have a great reasoning for that one. So yeah, brandied fruit will now get you drunk. So that's one. What else we got? Wet towels no longer prompt to be turned off. I'm realizing I bet a lot of you are not going to enjoy this episode. I bet people aren't going to like my just free form rambling about my own work, but that's what we're doing. That's what's happening, so you got to deal with it. So yeah, wet towels no longer prompt to be turned off. Apparently for a long time, if you had a wet towel, it was treated as an active item, which would then create a pop-up when you tried to sleep. And this was designed for like your MP3 player, right? So if you have your MP3 player on and you go to bed, you get a pop-up that says, hey, this is burning batteries. Maybe you want to turn it off before you go to bed. And unfortunately, for some reason, this was assigned to the wet towel, which is nonsense. And this was a really easy change. There's actually a flag specifically to make it something that doesn't give a pop-up. So I just assigned the flag and that was it. And again, very simple PR. This is something anyone could have done. You just have to kind of sift through all the issues and find one that looks like something you could easily address. Then we have ballistic vest disassembly recipes. So there were previously 3. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, apparently there are 3 ballistic vests that are tagged as ballistic vest light, and they're all basically identical. They just have pouches in different locations. So if I recall correctly, it was like a shoulder pouch. Actually, I don't remember what they all were. Let's have a look. Yeah, so just the standard pouches one. These are not named in a way that I can read them and understand them very clearly. I don't remember. They were 3 basically identical ballistic vests, but unfortunately you could only take one of the 3 apart, and since they're basically identical and just have pouches in different locations, I just assigned them the same deconstruction here. Or not deconstruction, technically it would be disassembly. So yeah, these vests now have a disassembly recipe. And then that's all that's been merged so far, but I do have 4 more that are open. I added a recipe for the portable soldering iron. I know this was a problem for a lot of people. It came up many times. You needed the portable soldering iron to craft I think it's the gunsmith repair kit, but you can't actually craft the portable soldering iron, so you would have to find one. And the only difference between the standard soldering iron and the portable one is that one used batteries and one used like an AC cord. And unfortunately, that's just not even a hard fix. So I just added, I didn't really know how to craft the recipe 100% on my own. I didn't know, I'm not a soldering guy or whatever, but I just tried to make it as reasonable as possible. I took it's between the requirements for crafting a regular soldering iron and the requirements of crafting the light battery mod, which lets you use batteries in items that can't usually use batteries. So my general thinking was it would be somewhere in between in terms of skill and requirements. And to my understanding, all you're doing really is taking off that cord and replacing it with a battery port. So I think this is reasonable, and it made an item that's been historically very difficult to grab a hold of and deal with. It makes it a lot more attainable now. Unfortunately, I did discover that the soldering iron recipe itself is pretty bad. It uses a nail. You can solder it even though you don't have a soldering iron, and I just don't really understand that. But I was afraid of changing that and making a bunch of people angry, so I just just added the portable one here. Then what else has not been merged yet? Yeah, so the CZ76 16-round magazine was incorrect. Someone posted this on Discord. It only held 12 rounds, even though the name and like the description said it would be 16 rounds. What I actually discovered is that this is like an issue with, like, it was designed to be 16 rounds, but it used to be 12 rounds. So we needed to update the ID as well as the ammo capacity. So I did that. This is the first time I've ever changed an ID in the game. So I had to change it every single location in the game where it would call for the 12 round magazine and replace it with the 16 round mag. I obviously upgraded the actual magazine itself to be 16 rounds like it's supposed to. And then I actually had to change one of the tests to reflect that it is being tested. So technically this is a C++ change, which I think is my first actual C++ change ever in the time I've been playing this game. I did make some code for the game back like 3 years ago. For me personally, I had added some stuff to the debug menu that I was going to add to the game, but I didn't know how to add it. Like, I didn't know how to A-style and do some of the stuff that's required to submit it to the game. And then I think Mail Clips came along and made those changes later anyway. It was to debug setting the HP of all limbs at once in the debug menu, because previously you had to do them per limb, which was very annoying. Anyway, tangent aside, this was a C++ change. I'm assuming maybe that's why it hasn't been merged yet. I think the tests all passed on this one, but yeah, no, it's in fact, no, I did. I just posted this in the merge channel to try and get it merged. Excuse me, I haven't been talking much because of my time off, so I'm a little getting hoarse here talking for so long. Yeah, so Hyperseeker posted that someone else actually tried to do this a few months ago, but it looks like they abandoned the project. And then in this old PR, they never, I think they failed a bunch of tests. They didn't fix like even just the formatting and stuff. And then two, they didn't address the tests or the whatever he says here, the tests and the tile sets, which I did in mine. So hopefully this gets merged soon. I think Mail Clips has been merging like tons of my stuff very quickly. So I don't know if that's like privilege because I've been in the community a long time, or if it's just how he normally works, but he's been adding a lot of my stuff, which I appreciate. So that should fix that. I guess we should just wrap it up at this point. I updated the ankle wallet pouch. It wouldn't hold wallets once you put a card in them. For some reason, cards are 3 inches and the ankle wallet pouch would not allow you to hold something that's 3 inches. So even though you could hold a wallet in it, the second you put something in it, it would stop, it wouldn't fit anymore. And then I changed the target dummy recipes because they require you to dig them and post them in the ground, but unfortunately you could put them on like concrete or asphalt or whatever. So I just quickly added a flag that makes it so it checks that you can actually dig. Someone thumbs down my PR. How dare you? Why would you thumbs down my PR, Kahekit? That's so rude. So the reason for, so I'm going to explain this one, I guess. So the reasoning for this change is that they explicitly say you have to dig them in the ground to make them stand up. It literally says that in their description, I think, of the item itself. Let me look here. Okay, so if we look here, it says a handmade humanoid figure useful for training in close quarters combat. This one is made from wood and it's some duct tape to mark. I think you're missing, maybe I'll fix that after this video. It has some duct tape to mark the striking points. You need to embed it into the ground for training. Yeah, it literally says, hey, this is a fake person on a stick, and in order to use it, you have to install it, which requires a digging tool of 2 or more, which is a shovel basically. So obviously you're digging it into the ground, and someone said, hey, even though this says we're digging it into the ground, you can do it on asphalt, on concrete. Obviously we're not digging through the road to post these. That makes no sense. And so I went in and I added basically it's just a flag that checks and says, hey, is this terrain diggable? And basically it has to be. So now they require you to actually be on diggable terrain. And I added to the other description basically so it will show up in the construction menu and say it has to be erected in the ground, because if I didn't put that, it basically just says you can't craft that here, and people wouldn't understand why they can't construct it there. So I don't know why you thumbs down my PR. That weirdly hurt my feelings. Well, no, why does it? It shouldn't hurt my, whatever. I've been having mental health issues. I take everything personally. It doesn't matter. Aren't you even the person who made the initial complaint? No, that was Dragon Wizard. No. So you're not involved in this process at all. I don't know why you thumbs down my PR. I'm a little sad about it. All right, well, it's not merged. Looks like it failed some tests anyway, so, that's whatever. Yeah, so everyone, I just wanted to make a video because I don't think I'm coming back this week. I kind of had planned to on Monday, but honestly, I just had another big. God, is it worth explaining? Probably not, right? I just have been texting someone. It's been an ongoing kind of difficulty with someone that was pretty important to me. But with me, I get very upset over small things, and they tend to spiral uncontrollably until I can't really function anymore. So basically, every week this thing comes up again with the same person, and it really derails me. Even if I'm doing well, even if things are good, the minute we start talking again, things really take a nosedive because I'm really not handling those interactions very well, and they don't seem like they're even trying to do what they say they're going to do. I don't know. We don't have to talk about it, I guess. But basically, like every week, I think I'm starting to do better, and then like I should just cut them out of my life, honestly. Anyway, this is a whole thing. Yeah, so I don't think I'm coming back on Monday like I had initially planned, so I wanted to throw you a video. I don't know if anyone likes this. I thought I would make just a rambling. I was going to play House Flipper and just record it and kind of ramble about what's going on in my life. I don't know if people would care to even hear that, but I wanted to post something because every time I go to YouTube and I see my numbers dipping real bad, basically, I have this little thing at the top of my YouTube window whenever I go to YouTube, and it tells me how my channel's doing, and I just watch those numbers go down and down and down. Down 39% apparently in the last 7 days, so that's amazing. That's great. So I wanted to kick you something. I don't know if you'll have enjoyed watching my changes. I have nothing else to do, super depressed, so I decided, why not try to add some stuff to the game, fix some problems with the game, things like that. So that's where we are. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I don't know when I'm going to make another one, but for now, everyone, thanks. I appreciate people who are supportive. Now, I do not appreciate the people who keep messaging me like, where are you? Why aren't you making content? Did you die? Things like that. That's not really a great way to approach this situation. I don't really care for that. When I get to editing, I'm going to look at how unhinged this whole thing was. Probably a little bit. Everyone, thank you for watching. I, of course, will make some new content eventually. And, yep, see you next time.